Hello, beautiful people. I'm Marakita Solis, vegan empowerment coach, and I'm excited to be here with Coach Alyssa Almond. She coaches ethical vegans, and she's going to bring this incredible wisdom to us today about bringing compassion into our lives, the wonderful compassion we have for animals, bringing that into our souls, into our hearts. So I'm thankful for her. I'm thankful for all of you all. Please give StreamYard permission to use your name. And if you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe. So let me welcome Alyssa. Please tell the
Thank
viewers
you.
about yourself,
I'm
and then we'll do a little meditation. So go ahead.
I'm so happy to be here. Yeah, thanks so much. So I'm vegan 11 years, and I was vegetarian 20 some before that. And my field was education, and I left that 4 or 5 years ago, and then moved into coaching with the intention to serve the humans who are serving the non-humans and the planet. Yeah, so it's really been great to be able to do work that's authentic to me in terms of my passion with protecting non-human species, but also something that is aligned with like who I am as an empath and a highly sensitive, and working with people one-on-one and in small groups.
That's beautiful. And I love your background is education. So, I mean, with that, it sounds like you have what you need to be able to communicate in an effective manner. And that's one thing we talk about a lot, right? And
Yeah, I know you talk about that quite a bit. Yeah.
yeah. And educators have to be patient. So, and loving.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
that's wonderful that you're here. So, let's start out, if everybody's okay with it, to have a little centering meditation. So, if everyone just wants to close your eyes and really take a deep breath, and if you have a lot of things that are on your mind, let's put them to the side right now. Let go of all the to-do list and just ground. Let's just settle into our heart space and calling in all that love. Just breathing deep down into your hips, down into your legs, and down into the soles of your feet. And seeing a beautiful light. And this beautiful light is coming towards you. And the light is saying, I'm standing with you. I'm compassion. I'm kindness. I'm love. I'm warmth. And I'm empathy. And I'm here with you. Just imagine yourself reaching out to her and letting the warmth of her heart or his heart just surround your body with love. Just staying in the sacred space and feeling blessed by this energy. Really connecting to this place of power. Knowing that all of the universe is supporting you right now. All the trees, all the animals, all the rivers and all the streams, all the muskrats and all the possums. They're with us here on this journey. They are standing with you right now. We're feeling just the strength of the world. This world knows how beautiful you are, and she's sending you love. And all the people that are supporting you in your life are here in this moment, standing with us now. We're just feeling that warm light as it flows through our body. It's going into our heart and back to all the animals and back to all the trees and all the plants, the rivers. It's a stream of love. And so we're saying thank you for this. Thank you for standing with us on this mission today, this mission of compassion and empathy for ourselves. We're ready for this like we have never been before. We're standing in grace and giving thanks. And so we say thank you, and so it is, and so it shall be. And you can open your eyes whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Mariquita.
I feel a little bit lighter now.
Yeah. Yes. It's so important to ground into Mother Nature, Mother Earth, and nature, and also to remember that we're not alone, right? Whether, calling in our higher selves or spirit or ancestors. Yeah, and to really connect with our hearts and our bodies. Yeah.
Yeah, that is so true. This real deeper connection, right? I mean, we can always go outside and see the trees, but when we really see the trees or feel the trees with our hearts, or put our arms around the trees, there's something greater. And that's what's going to transcend our lives as we connect with all of the universe on a greater level, just not just seeing with our eyes, but feeling with our hearts and our souls, right? And knowing that those are living beings, because I'm looking at them now and they're so majestic, right? And they've been here for so long, so it's beautiful, right? And they're very compassionate beings, very quiet and stoic,
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's beautiful. So when we're talking about compassion today, Alyssa, why is it important to widen that circle of compassion for yourself? Because a lot of people don't think they don't have time for it, I hear, or they don't understand. They don't even know how to begin to have that self-compassion, right? And they maybe, like in education-wise, we're not really taught that in schools, right? So I mean, it's a foreign thing to them. So what would you say to that? To someone that has no idea how to start this process?
Yeah. It's a place we've all been, right? Having compassion for other species, but not necessarily for ourselves or for other human beings, right? And yet it's so important because it impacts how our own energy and how we interact with every one and every being around us. And it also impacts our ability to do sustainable work, advocacy on the part of animals and the planet. That was the first part of your question. And now I completely forget what the second part was.
Oh, I forgot it too. So let's just keep moving forward.
Yeah. That's why it's important. Oh, how do we begin to
Oh, yeah.
do it? Yeah, I think. I think one of the important things is being willing to claim it. And before you can claim it, right, it's being open to the idea, having some curiosity of, can I have compassion for myself? Do I deserve that when others are suffering? How can I even do that? But to be open to the notion, and I found, start surrounding myself or listening to those who were speaking about compassion. That was definitely part of my journey, being open to teachers and leaders who come from that space, and really understand the importance. Because I think in AR, right, there's no time for compassion for us, right? We've got to go a mile a minute. The work is never done. The suffering feels insurmountable, and so it's just like there is no space, right? There's no space for taking care of ourselves, and yet it's so important, and so impacts the quality of our lives, right? The short time that we're here, what are we experiencing and what are we putting back out into the universe?
Yeah, because when we have taken care of ourselves, then we're able to really take care of other people. And I mean, if our mission is to really educate and be a shining light, that's teaching, that's really an example for other people, then we've got to somehow take care of ourselves first. I know that self-compassion was, I didn't even know what that was. I was so desperate for it at one point. I just hated myself for years and years. And I used to beat myself up every single night because I was living in shame. And that's what a lot of people are doing, living in shame. A lot of people say, I haven't done enough. I haven't done, animals are suffering. How can I be happy? Right. And, and so I felt like, just that overwhelming sense. I didn't know where to start. And one thing I did actually was to get Kristen Neff's book, Self-Compassion. I was online in the middle of the night and I found that book. And so through that book, that was kind of my journey of facing up to starting a new life. But still, after that, I still carried around shame from other parts of my life. And I know that a lot of vegans do carry around shame from feeling like, even just sitting with people that are not vegans, right? They're ashamed of that, or they're ashamed that they haven't converted enough people. And so then they really beat themselves up there. I saw a post the other day about someone, hi Trisha, and hi Amber. I saw a post of someone saying that they slipped up and ate some meat or some cheese, right? And they felt really bad, and so they were beating themselves up about it. And so, what would you say to that, Alyssa, to that person that's so feeling horrible?
It's okay. We're human. And one of the things we're here to do is, if you want to call it a mistake, to make mistakes and learn from that. I think many vegans, we're trying to do the most good and the least harm, right? And sometimes products we're buying might have a little trace of something in if we're not really reading the labels. It's going to happen. I think it's about intention, and it's about, you used the word grace earlier, giving ourselves some grace, right? We're on a journey, and there's just so much out there to bombard us with, and we're making choices every second of the day. So of course we're going to do things, whether we're aware of it or not, that are not completely aligned with our values. So I say to that person, give yourself some love, right? We love you. We're not judging you. So give yourself a break. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think what you're saying is so important, because a lot of times I see someone, let's just say we're talking about celebrities, right? That were vegans and then they went back to eating meat, and then people really attacked them. And I don't remember there was a podcast I was watching, but they were like saying that we're holding these people up so high, right? But they're human beings. And so we feel like everything's over if they eat meat. Now the whole the whole vegan movement's taken down. But somehow, having that compassion for them and having the same kind of compassion for ourselves, if we, whatever you want to call it, have a slip, and it's natural to have those things happen. I mean, a lot of times I know with well, I ate something the other day that I looked at the ingredients. It was, I don't even remember what it was, but it was something, I had no idea that there would be any kind of meat in it. And it said something like bone powder, and I thought, what in the world? But anyway, of course I didn't mean to do that. And now would I say, okay, well, I haven't been vegan for all those years, now I've got to start again, but
No, because vegan is your it's your values, right? And it's striving every day. It's not, you don't have to start all over again, right? You're still you. This is still really important to you. So it doesn't, the clock doesn't start over again. There's no need for punishment. We don't, we grew up in this punishment reward system that is really limiting and painful to us.
Wow, that's so true. And as women are very the shame-based meanings, the way that women come up with these shame-based meanings is, let's say you go on a date. I mean, you keep going on dates and you can't meet the right guy, supposedly the right woman, and you start to think there's something wrong with me, something wrong with my character, right? And then it becomes, some sort of thing where you have to persecute yourself, and then you fall into that trap, and you're creating this glass ceiling that you can't break out of now because of these circumstances. You think, well, I'm not worthy of dating anyone good. Look, I can't get a relationship, so I deserve less. And that's how we get stuck, because the compassion hasn't been there for ourselves. So it's about changing the narrative. I mean, we've got to change these narratives, and we do have to live gracefully and kindness to ourselves first, right?
And that's where we have the most power and the most control, right? We may be able to influence other people, but the only things we can control is what we think, feel, say, and do. And changing those stories, first identifying them, right? Hearing that there's a story, there's some lie that we're telling ourselves about who we are from childhood, right? We might have kept the same narrative going, identifying those, right? Taking a breath, pausing and considering, maybe that's not true, right? And then again, surrounding ourselves with, voices, people who support those notions, right? It's like like moving away from competition, right? Very, very competitive society, but of course, in the feminine, it's collaboration, it's sharing, and
Yeah.
we didn't get to grow up in those tribes, with those elders, and to be held in that space where we like grow and learn how to be compassionate with ourselves and compassionate with others. No, we have to prove our worth. So,
wow, yeah, you're hitting on everything that I've been really thinking about lately. Because working with the feminine energy in the coaching that I do, right? And a lot of people think, well, that's not for me. I'm a man, or feminine, or they think feminine energy is weak. But feminine energy is the horizontal. It's the union of people, relationships, right? And the masculine energy is about that doggy dog, people moving up this way.
yeah, linear.
Yeah, very linear, right? And so how are we going to change the vegan movement is by having that relationship with other people and really bringing in that kindness, that energy of the feminine, compassion, and not self-judgment. That's so harsh. Look where we've gotten in the world with this. I mean, stepping away from compassion. Like, where has it gotten us? And I remember Osama bin Laden's, I think it was his sister-in-law, and they said, "Do you hate him?" And she said, "No, I don't hate him. That's what caused this is hate." So she was able to see that. And we've got to be able to see that the same hate or the same judgment that we're putting on ourselves, I mean, it's going in our body and it's coming out, right? There's no hiding it. We're going to be like basting ourselves in that judgment if we don't have self-compassion.
Yeah.
And then how does that play out in the world? How successful can we be if we're basting in self-judgment and criticism and we're not being empathetic with ourselves?
Yeah. And most of us hold that value of compassion so high, right? For non-human species. But it does begin, I think you said this earlier, with compassion for ourselves, which is sort of turning the whole thing on its head. And right, the more compassion we have for ourselves, the more compassion we can have for others as they're navigating their journey. And we're not spending our whole time cycling in judgment and negativity. You use the word hatred, right? It's really easy to get triggered because we've been steeped in it right, for so long.
Yeah, we have, and I know of a few people recently I've had interactions with that are just trapped in this cycle, of really hard on themselves and saying, "Well, I really want to make a difference in this vegan world, and I don't think I'm doing it. I'm just not. I'm never going to make a difference." And so, I mean, what's their fate? To always be sad, and not to, instead of
Yes,
being
yes,
compassionate for themselves, right, and to say, "Hey, you're doing a great job." I mean, compassion is also uplifting, right, and all those beautiful qualities are in compassion. And so now, even though they are making a difference, it's just total blindness to that. And there's something about, I remember one of my coaches said that people love to stay in that victim mindset, right? They want to wear that badge of,
yeah.
and there's something there that it's fueling. Like when we're not giving compassion to ourselves, what is it that, what I'm trying to ask, I don't know, is what does that, how does that serve me not to be compassionate to myself?
Well, it doesn't, but you're right. It's fueling that story, whether it be martyr or victim, right? Like the martyr of I'm so burdened, I'm doing all these other things, for others, and no one's seeing me, right? Because we do all want to be seen and heard and understood, right? Or it's the victim of someone else is doing something to me or to others, right? Like I think many of us, we vegans, in a sense, we feel victimized by by what the omnivores and the carnivores are doing, right? You're destroying the world, and we're all part of, right? We all have a footprint. So what was my point? Yeah, it's staying in victim, and that story. Wow, yeah, and then that feeds other stories, and it absolutely disempowers us. And so that we really can't make any change in how we live and how we interact with the world. But most of us, right, have either a victim or a martyr story, or both, some kind of combination.
Yeah. And it's not a good place to be creating from, right?
You
Creating.
can't create from there. You can't create, like, um, to create. We need to have uh, exposure and bring, like, beauty, and love, right, and freedom and flow, right, to really be inspired to create. And if we're just in that judgment or that space of I don't have any worth, right, and most of us do, right, at the core, something related to I'm not enough, I'm not lovable. um, and for that to govern our lives is terrible. And yet I totally get it, because because I lived most of my life there.
So did I. The I'm not enough, right? Never enough. Let me just go and jump through hoops on every date that I go on, right? And let me do, forget me. Let me put
Mhm,
myself aside,
mhm.
but yeah. And I mean, if we're out there, let's say we're out there trying to talk to people and really trying to change the world, we've got to have compassion for ourselves, because if we don't have compassion for ourselves, we can't have compassion for them. So we can't understand them. And the only way that we can change the world is when we're on a level of understanding other people. We've got to have compassion for ourselves so that we can show it to others. And I know a lot of people say, I don't want to show compassion to other people that aren't vegan. I want them to understand the facts, right? And then,
Yeah. Or
but
even to feel the pain, right? Like, I've spent plenty of time wanting to inflict pain on other humans. Like, but don't you feel what I feel? Don't you see what I'm seeing that's going on in the world, and what it's like to live knowing, right? Like, every single place you go, you see some kind of atrocity. And we're talking about in civilized society, right? We're not talking about what's actually going on on the farms, in transport, at the slaughterhouses themselves, there's something, right? So we're experiencing all this. And so I have this pain and this anger, right? Like, what do I want to discharge it, right? So it's like to attack, at least I feel like, oh, I feel better if I attack, right? Because I can discharge the energy. But guess what? I don't feel better. And now I've alienated myself and sort of alienated what is vegan, who is vegan, right? This crazy lady, just launched into me, or has this energy about her that feels very judgmental. So I'm not engaging, and I don't want to be a part of that, whatever it is they're doing.
Yeah, I mean, that's very true. I mean, compassion and this kindness, all those elements are what's going to change the world, right? We're not going to change it by forcing and judging ever. I mean, how many people are changing because they were shamed into it or judged, or I don't even know what to say about this because it's so tricky. There's a tight line, tight wire to walk on this when you're talking about veganism to other people, where you're not trying to force them. You just want to say, this is what I do. Are you interested? But you want to do your part, right? But you don't want them to feel threatened. So that's when and that's when you can master it. And that's what every day working on, right? I mean, falling down, getting up. Maybe I didn't master it. Maybe now I just pissed someone off so much. They don't want to be vegan now. And now I'm going to hopefully forgive myself or just say, hey, you did the best you could. And, because I think it's very important to be aware. See, we have a guest. That when we are just sending that energy out that's not compassion, what is the consequence of that, right?
Yeah, in our bodies and on the other people. Is that what you're saying?
In our bodies, it's so important what you were saying, and then there's no way to hide it. Somehow, the inner work, when you work on yourself, then you don't have to pretend like I'm not going to be all angry and then I'm going to say, okay, now I'm going to just try to pretend to be peaceful to these people, because they're going to feel it, right? They're going to feel you staring them down in the grocery store.
I'm only laughing because I was in the grocery store earlier, and the guy in front of me, and it was taking forever, and he had like 3 different species in his cart. Like, and lots of flesh. And so, I'm kind of like, all right, calm, just, be calm, but that's taking longer. I'm like, I'm shaking my head. Like, I didn't say anything. Like, I want to say, 3 species, how, or to say something to the woman who was checking him out. And let's see, my point was, it eats away at us, right? And we're allowed to be angry. We're entitled to have all of the emotions, that full range that we experience, and many of us are experiencing things at the bottom tier, the hopelessness, the despair, feeling helpless, the pessimism, right? We're allowed to have those emotions, but to the feelings, to express them in an appropriate way, right?
Yeah, and then when you do have the emotions, when you do have that anger, you feel like you don't know what to do, right? You're at home now, and you just keep thinking that loop of that person in the grocery store, right? And some people start beating themselves up. Why didn't I say anything to him? Now it's too late, right? He had all that meat in the cart. Why didn't I say anything?
Well, and then there's what just comes to me there is like the notion of boundaries, right? Like, yes, we feel so strongly, but what does give us the right? And I'm not saying we don't have the right to engage in a conversation, right? But thinking about the boundaries that we want to have in place with others, for our own protection, right? And to not be putting our negative energy on others.
Yeah, and it's very hard. And you're right. I mean, all these feelings are very legitimate, and to honor the feelings, right? I mean, when we're angry, to just imagine like, oh, that warm, loving compassion holding that anger, right? The anger is here in a little ball, and then the compassion's coming in. She's putting her arms around anger, that anger, and validating the anger, feeling, saying, I love you, and what you're feeling means you have a beautiful heart, right? And the anger's just a beautiful sign of your empathy for all living beings. So to really send love to that anger, to send love to the frustration, right? Even to send and practice. Okay, now I might get screamed at, but send love to that person in the store that did have the thing of meat, right? And say, hey, you know what? I'm sending love to you because I really think that you're the type of person that if you knew really what was going on, you wouldn't be having that in your cart. So I'm sending you love, and I'm just praying, or whatever you want to say. If you don't want to pray, that's fine. Or just sending energy for an awakening, right? That you will have a spiritual awakening, right? So, I mean, I think that's a beautiful way to do it. There's so many ways to handle it and kind of figure out what's best for you. So,
Yeah. And what you're saying about the processing of the emotions, it's beautiful, right? To think of giving love and compassion to parts of us, right? If it's a wounded child who gets triggered, or having that anger and acknowledging it, processing it. And I was going somewhere with this. Yeah. That is part of compassion, right? Allowing yourself to have your emotions and let them move through you, right? We can't move out of them if we don't fully allow ourselves to feel them, right? And
right.
that's when they continue to cycle. And so so many people want to get out of the despair or the negativity or the pessimism or the depression. But we perpetuate it with what we tell ourselves, largely about ourselves, but certainly about others and the world around us. And that is a choice, which is not something that I always believed, for sure. I mean, I remember 20 years ago. Do you know that book, Happiness is a Choice?
Yeah.
I don't know the author. And 20 some years ago, I was teaching in Washington Heights, and I read that book, and man, I could not identify it, because I was really striving and proving, like trying to, my value as a really young, not properly trained teacher. And I thought, you can't choose happiness. There is no choice. There's just this burden of service, right? This is what I have to do. And what I've learned is, like, yes, service, absolutely, right? That's something that's very important to me, but doing it in a way that's authentic to myself, and also accepting myself and loving myself in the process. And that's when it can start to feel like a choice of what you're telling yourself and what the emotions that you're experiencing most commonly on a daily basis.
Yeah, and knowing that you're perfectly imperfect, right? And that that you're doing the best you can, and that you can take breaks. If you need a break, if you're feeling so angry, then realize that anger is saying, take a break, right? The anger is saying something. So really listening to our bodies. If I'm so, my throat's just like, oh.
Yeah.
Now, I have had that before, where I go to the energy healers, Reiki, and they will tell me so many times, I feel it in your throat. You're not being heard. And I think about that. It's like, I want to tell everybody, go vegan, right? And what about the planet? What about the animals? And then, but I realized that if I just start screaming that, people are going to say, change the channel. We don't want to hear that. We're not ready for
Oh,
that.
yeah, right.
So, yeah.
But
So,
I think what you're talking about of uh, feeling these emotions and just allowing that as a way to be compassionate to ourselves and to what is the emotion, what are we experiencing in our body, right? And what is the emotion telling us, right? Allowing ourselves to be in our bodies,
yes.
to experience what we're feeling, whether it's, in our heart, in our physical body, or, energetically. We're allowed to feel that and process that and see what, access to that guidance from our body. But we're not taught any of this, none of this. Yeah. No, it's all about head, for
I
sure.
know. You're right. It is. And it's not about listening to your body and the feelings that we get when we're with other people. I mean, if really tuned into our body, we would know when it's time to stop, right? I mean, when we're doing these vegan conversations, we would get because people are sending, energy to us. We would feel the energy that's it. They don't want to hear anymore, right?
Yeah.
But we shut down to that. You're just like you said, we're not taught. And so it's all about newness. And when you're doing because both of us are coaches, we've done the inner work, right? And we had to heal ourselves. We had to step away from the old stories and into the new story, right? We had to see what was blocking us. So, I mean, of course, that helps in conversations with people that aren't vegan and in doing this work because I don't take it personally. Before, I probably would have taken it personally. I would think, oh, well, I failed. It's all my fault. But now I realize they're just not at the time. It's not their time to change, and that's okay. Of course, I have to say that's okay. And now people are probably going to throw rocks at me, but it has to be okay, or I can't sleep in peace at night. And being okay with it is compassionate for me. It's compassionate for them. And the more compassion we are, throwing that compassion back and forth, the sooner they're going to open up to being vegan. Because nobody's pressuring them, nobody's making them feel bad, nobody's making them feel guilty. So that's my rant.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. And you mentioned, I don't know if you used the word intuition, but right, like we can't hear our bodies if we're just so like we're in our head and this is what I have to accomplish,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
We're just cutting ourselves off from so much information about ourselves and about the world, the humans, the non-humans around us. And of course, intuition, that's feminine, so of course it's regarded as less than, the intellectual capability.
Yes, definitely. You're right. That's the feminine energy is listening to your body. And the masculine is like charting it out. Okay, here's what we're going to say. Let's go do it. The
Yeah, and
result
we
is
need both. That's the thing. We
yeah,
all, right? We all need both. We might have more or less, is each individual of the type of energies, but we all need that balance. And the feminine has been suppressed for millennia.
yeah. And I mean, we're on here because of the masculine energy, because we signed on at a certain time. I
Yeah,
hit
you
go,
figured
right?
out StreamYard.
Yeah,
You're doing all these wonderful conversations with people. It's on the calendar. It's
right.
absolutely using that structure, imperative, right? And within that structure of like in what our topic is and the time window, right? We're able to really connect with each other, right? And have this very open dialogue. Yeah.
Definitely. So I'm looking at Trisha's comment. She says, I have these mad scientist thoughts about hacking the cable and news channels or the New York Times Square screen and showing the world what is happening to these animals. Laughing out loud. I keep thinking, why hasn't someone done this yet? Ha ha. Yeah, I think we've all had that, huh?
Um, yes, yes, absolutely. Right? Like,
Oh, wait, I can't hear you for
oh,
some reason.
all right. Can you hear me now? No? All right.
Wait.
Can you hear me now?
No.
Can you?
Oh, maybe it was me. Maybe everybody could hear me. I can hear you. Maybe it was my thing, but go ahead.
You can hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah. We've all been there. Absolutely. It's but that's asserting control, right? That's a form of domination. And it's the kind of things that really can make us feel kind of crazy, because then we start thinking about things that we can't control. I mean, maybe Trisha, you can hack into the systems and do that, and cool. I know that I can't, right? I don't have that technical capability or any of the the other things that would need to. So it's like, what is the way that is your voice that makes sense for you, and what can you control?
That's very interesting what you said. Yes, that is domination, and that's what we're trying to stop, right? So yeah, I mean, seeing it from this point of view, and no, I empathize with Trisha, because I know, I mean, when we care so much, we want to do it, of course, but then
we're desperate. I mean, that desperation. This has got to stop. Don't stop perpetuating this. That pain, all of that yes, absolutely. But it ends up hurting us, often more than it is of doing service to those
right.
who are trying to help.
Yeah, and that's what I say a lot. I mean, I really say this that just for my coaching, we're not going to create from a place of desperation. We're creating from power and grace and peacefulness, right? Confidence. We're going out there. We know that we're perfectly imperfect. We know that, hey, nobody, I mean, we might think that we didn't connect with anybody, but maybe we did, right? And it's going to be okay. Whatever happens, it's okay, because I'm living in alignment with my values. So that's when you can really make a shift, right? And let go of these agendas and outcomes. So,
and the systems are so loud, so large and so powerful, right? That and we're also deeply entrenched in the systems, and they overlap and support that too. Yeah,
the government. Yeah, the government. I mean, we're going up against big money, big business. So yeah, I mean, we've got to really use our minds and really use our hearts to connect with people. But so let me see what else Trisha's saying. I have a really hard time at the grocery store. And every chance I get, when someone is in earshot, I'll say something to my kids like, we need to find the vegan cheese because we don't want to contribute to the cow's suffering, right? Just so they can hear it. And so it pings on their subconscious.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I was vegetarian for 20 some years because I didn't know. And for a certain, so I started in 1989 as a vegetarian. And, there wasn't much information out there, but later on, there was, and I didn't quite get it. Right. I didn't know. And so, yeah, once I knew, right, full stop, it's over, right? It's absolutely over with the dairy. But yeah, planting that seed.
Yeah. I mean, those are, it's not getting in anybody's face or, being pushy or controlling, right? It's just,
You're having a conversation with your own child, and it's audible. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was looking at some other things I wanted to ask you here, because I had taken some notes to make sure, right? That we touched on some of these things. And what do you think about when you're talking about compassion for yourself changes the energy you share with others, friends, family, and companion animals? So let's talk about the family that doesn't want to change. How do you have compassion for them, and how would having compassion for yourself be beneficial? And should you try to change your family?
Right. And family is so loaded, right? And they installed our trigger buttons and so just the dynamics, right? The roles we've had for years and years, even if we're, full-fledged adults. Yeah, so I know when we were talking about this, what I was thinking about was, when I'm stressed and angry, this isn't quite addressing the second part of your question. That impacts these non-humans who I share my space with, right? They're picking up on my energy as I've calmed down one of my cats. She's just off camera here. She's very sensitive. So as I've adopted a different kind of lifestyle and how I interact with myself and the energy that I bring, she is much calmer and doesn't have some of the behaviors that she had that were indicative of her being stressed. So there's that. In terms of changing our families, I don't know. I live with my sister and my nephew, and I do most of the grocery shopping. So unless they are vegetarian, right? My nephew is vegetarian, and my sister eats vegetarian, most of the time. So if I'm asked to buy something, I will buy it, right? Because this is what my sister is asking for her child. Now, maybe this is cowardice, but I have yet to engage in the conversation of, and he's a teenager, so he's plenty old developmentally. I know you were having that conversation the other day with someone about, when is it appropriate to start bringing up some of these topics with your children? But I have yet to have that conversation because I don't feel it's my place. Will I if I'm asked? Absolutely. And I can
Yeah.
do it without a rant. But just the fact that they're both vegetarian when they were both omnivores is something. And yeah.
Yeah, and I know that a lot of people get angry. I mean, let's just say for buying food for meat eaters, right? There's a lot of anger there, right? There's a lot of
I
anger.
come from my mother, and she eats chickens, and eats some dairy, and it's just. Sorry, I interrupted you.
No. I mean, I know that I was listening to Victoria Moran, and she said I asked her the question. Somebody asked her the question. It was me. What about buying food for non-vegans, right? I mean, do you do that? And she said, you know what? She was telling a story, I think, about her father or mother or someone in her family that was sick, and they wanted her to go to the store, and she was ashamed, and she kind of covered it up in her cart, but she bought it because she felt like that relationship, was very important. And I understand that. And it's not that these people are bad or anything. I mean, we've got to cultivate these relationships so we don't cut them off. And if your family is vegetarian, then that's one step closer to vegan, right? And if you're the example there with vegan eating, I mean, it's a very tricky question. And I know that a lot of people get angry about it, about the buying meat. I was asked about that in a group that they said that the questions for the group are, do you commit to never buying meat? And I can't commit to that because I don't know what's going to happen in the future, right? If somebody's sick and they're eating meat, it's not what I want to do at all. But there's not a black and white answer for everything, I think, is
Yeah,
the key. Right?
allowing for some of that gray and giving us some space.
Yeah.
Like what we were talking about in the beginning, is someone accidentally eating something, giving ourselves some grace, right? Our intentions are good. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's very hard. And yeah, and just to understand that there's more to it. And to be, again, that comes back to the compassion, right? Compassion for other people, compassion for ourselves, compassion for letting them make their decisions and not judging them, right? To let go of judgment for people, right? And just to keep doing the best you can. Everybody's got to do the best they can for themselves, and no one else is here to say, what that is. I mean, they can feel it in their body. Back to the feeling in your body. Your body will tell you if it's the best thing that you should be doing, right? So I don't know. There's a lot of trickiness, and that's why it's like walking that tight wire. Being a vegan a lot of
Yeah.
times.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and
It
then
is.
vegans attacking other vegans. I mean, that's a mess. If we're here, vegan is about love. To me, I was going to ask you, what would you say the definition of vegan is?
Yeah, I think it's valuing the lives of other species on the planet,
Yeah,
and not necessarily putting my life and my wants, above theirs.
yeah, you're right. I mean, I think that's what it is too. So it's about having compassion and love and values and doing the best you can. Again, perfectly imperfect is what we all
Yeah,
are. There's no 100% vegan, right?
yeah. And I've heard you talk before about ego, and with respect to vegans, attacking other vegans. Like, I get it, right? And I've been in spaces like that where you're looking at that group and how they're doing their activism, or uh, I get it. And we're so caught up in the proving and the striving, right? Like, I have to prove my value and my worth, and so I'm in this group, and this is what I believe. So this other group has got to be wrong, right? The way they're doing it must be wrong because I'm doing it the right way. Or if they're doing it the right way, then geez, I'm doing it the wrong way. And we're trying to solve something that is so complex and huge, as we were talking before, with the systems and the
Yeah,
interplay.
and the programming, right? The programming, we're forgetting about that. We haven't even talked about that. I mean, the fact that that's what we're taught, that's what, like, the brainwashing comes in, right? From the moment we're born. Many of us, you've got to eat meat, you've got to eat dairy, you can't make it without milk, your bones are going to be brittle. I mean, of course, it's very hard for people to break away from that. We're lucky when that we could break away from it. We're lucky we could see, but some people just are not ready to see that. And I'm sorry, but that's the facts. It's not the way I want it. I would love for them all to see it, but they've received this programming, right? And whenever they're ready to take off that meat eating program hat, then let them take it off when it's their time. It's just like the cocoon, right? If you're going to take a butterfly out of the cocoon too soon, she's going to die. And this is the journey that we're all on. So understanding other people and letting them make the decisions for their lives. And because who really wants to be in control of other people? I don't.
Right, right. I used to want to, right? Because, gosh, if I had the power, right? Think of what we could do. Think of how the suffering we could alleviate. But guess what? I don't have the power. I have influence in certain areas at certain times.
Right. And yeah, what if you had to get up, Alyssa, every day and say, okay, now you've got to control everyone in the world? Could you imagine?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm looking at Michelle St. John. I'm so grateful for the time, love, and expertise you both are sharing for the benefit of fellow animal advocates. It's so important to learn self-compassion. One thing I've learned as an empathic person, if you don't take care of yourself, you won't have the mental strength to advocate for the animals. Yes. That said, I struggle to keep that balance between caring about the fate of the animals and switching off from the fight and caring for self. Your burden of service concept rings so true. And then it cut her off. But and then thank you, Alyssa. Yes, for compassionate, insightful discussion on our living our vegan values in a non-vegan world. I have to go, but I appreciate both of you. Yes, and So, I mean, we could talk about this for days. I mean, this is a very complicated issue. The big thing of vegan, right? It's like we said,
Yeah.
it's not black and white. There's no right way and wrong way. And there's not that we're right and they're wrong. We're good and they're bad, right? This is about
Yeah.
compassion into that very complicated space of
And taking responsibility for what is ours and what we can control and what we can influence, and so part of that is taking responsibility for ourselves, and that's our own health, physical health, our emotional health, our spiritual health, um, and making that our responsibility, because that we do have so much control over. Yeah.
right. Well, yes, what you're saying definitely is it. I mean, we are only responsible for ourselves, and we can do the best we can and come home and celebrate. I did the best I could. Maybe it wasn't as good as yesterday. Maybe it won't be as good as tomorrow, but I did the best I can and I'm
And
at peace with
that's
that.
good enough. You know,
Right.
the perfectly imperfect you're talking about. We're all greatly flawed and also amazing.
Yes. You're
And
right.
uh, and accepting that, and yeah, being willing to really lean into that, um, to that love and acceptance, not just for others but for ourselves, is it affects the quality of our lives.
It does. And yeah, it starts with yourself. So, this has been very insightful. And is there anything else you wanted to say? I wanted to make sure everybody knows where they can get a hold of you. Um,
Yeah, thank you so much. I've really enjoyed this conversation, and thank you everyone for joining us. I'm on LinkedIn, so just Alyssa Almond, and you'll see my face, right? And then I'm on Facebook as well, Alyssa Almond, and you will see my face. It used to only be the cat who came through Santana, so you'll know it's me. Yeah, I'm working on a website, but I'm not there yet. So that's where you can find me. Yeah.
well, I feel like you're very grounded in strength, and then you have this wonderful experience of education and vegetarian and veganism. So I'm really thankful for all your wisdom here and just
Yeah.
bringing that compassion.
I appreciate the opportunity to talk with you. It's always great to see you.
Well, thank you. And thanks, everybody. Thanks, Michelle, and let's see, and Trisha, and everyone else that's watching. Let us know if you have any questions. Reach out to us because our job is to really help you all get unstuck and to stand in your power. No more desperate, no more sadness. I mean, where sadness is controlling your life, right? If you get with us, we'll be there to love the sadness and support you. So please reach out to us. And everyone, thank you so much, you all. Thank you, Alyssa.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.